It's Sister Lee's favorite time. It's time for the recap. Um, so,
The movie we had last week was great.
okay, okay, good to know. All right, so we had previously in our last class, we had previously talked about the struggle between the Philistines and the Hebrews, the Israelites, during this time, in the time of Samuel. We talked about the failed leadership of Eli, particularly in his own house, allowing his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, to kind of run wild and do whatever they wanted, perverting the holiness of the tabernacle, taking the best for themselves, not caring about leading for the people, just very self-centered, leadership, and just really using God and the institution and the rituals of the tabernacle to enrich themselves and not to help the people. And it got so bad, as Scripture tells us, that the people abhorred the offering, right? The sacrifices. They got tired of bringing it. It's like, why am I bringing all of this stuff when it's being stolen and not given to God? So there was that dynamic. Also, what happened to the ark? Stolen, right? It was taken. They brought it out into battle, right? And they lost it to the Philistines. The Philistines bring it to their god Dagon, and we talked about the importance of Dagon in Philistine culture. It was really their main god, had to do with fertility and grain and also the sea. Dagon is going to fall before the Ark of the Covenant. His head's going to come off, his hands as well. God is going to punish the Philistines, most likely with bubonic plague. If you kind of look at the story and the symptoms, it does fit in nicely with the bubonic plague, and it's going to spread as well throughout the coasts of the Philistines. Remember, the Philistines, the majority of the Philistines lived on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and then populations of the cities are going to be destroyed. Now, whether or not, the Ark of the Covenant was transmitted through the Ark of the Covenant, we don't know, but just naturally, this is how things spread anyways, right? You go from one city, one guy is in the city, and he moves up to Gath, and he brings the bubonic plague with him. And then, the rest is history. So that's the recap.
Can we have that extended?
Jim, we can delve deep into anything you want.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, okay, good. All right, so we're going to talk today about Samuel and the different roles that he had. He really was a remarkable man. He grew up with Eli in the tabernacle, and he understood the significance of all the rituals. He understood the power of the tabernacle. He understood the power of God, and he had this relationship with God that started as a young child. Remember when Samuel was young, God called to him 3 times, and Samuel thought it was who? Eli, right? He says, I didn't call you. And so this relationship with God, I think the words in Samuel say that he grew in favor with men and with God. Very similar words that I use for John the Baptist and Jesus, right? And so there's that connection, right? And so it's really a wonderful story of faithfulness, even as a young child. And Samuel is kind of showing these characteristics that God is pleased with. This humility, this willingness to learn, this willingness to draw closer to God. And Samuel is going to have this very strong, very personal relationship with God, as we're going to see. And he's going to be tasked with a lot of stuff. It was a very difficult time for the Israelites. They're being pressured by a lot of different people, as we're going to see. We already know the Philistines are there. We're going to find out the Amorites are going to be a problem as well. The Amalekites down south are also going to be an issue. And then add to that, you have all of this internal struggle, don't we? We have corruption at the highest levels of authority within Israelite society at this time. It wasn't a good time. And so here comes Samuel, and he's got just the burden on his shoulders. But you know what you do, in Samuel, you never see him complain. He doesn't complain. He knows he has a job to do. He was a very active guy. And so, that's just kind of some of my thoughts on this. So let's take a look at 1 Samuel, the 7th chapter. This was, I don't know, I kind of hesitate to say one is more important than the other. I think they're all equally important, but this right here, being a judge of Israel, would take a considerable amount of time, right? I don't know if it was to this extent, but you remember when Moses, they were in the wilderness for the first time, they just came out of Egypt, and Moses spent his whole day from morning to night just judging the people. People would line up all day, and he would judge all of this stuff from the smallest thing to the greatest thing. And his father-in-law Jethro were like, hey, what are you doing? You're going to burn yourself out. So I don't know if it was that bad with Samuel, but he did travel around in a circuit quite a bit in Israel, judging the tribes. So the 7th chapter of Samuel, if you look at this 7th chapter right here in verse 5, verse 5, and Samuel said, gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray for you unto the Lord. Now he's telling them in verse 3 to return to God with all your hearts, put away strange gods and Ashtaroth from among you, and prepare your hearts only unto the Lord, and serve him only, who will deliver you out of the hands of the Philistines. Then the children of Israel did put away Balaam and Ashtaroth and serve the Lord only. And so this was really, this was the continual struggle, wasn't it, with the prophets and with Israel and with God. They were so easily influenced by the culture and the religious ideas of the people around them. They're worshiping Balaam, right? Balaam's been around for a long, long time. I believe he was the god of the Moabites, the main god of the Moabites. Ashtaroth, I think we talked about this as well, was a female deity, oftentimes referred to as the consort of God, right? The God's wife. And so you had this powerful female deity that the Canaanites worshipped, and that Israelites are going to worship as well. So they come to Mizpah. Mizpah at this time played a very important role in the judgment, and it was a kind of a central place where Israelites could come together, and this is when Samuel would kind of judge them and prophesy, that type of thing. Verse 6, and they gathered together to Mizpah and drew water and poured it out unto the Lord and fasted on that day and said there, we have sinned against the Lord. And Samuel judged the children of Israel in Mizpah. And so, he's going to use this opportunity to judge them, to prophesy. And now let's take a look, verse 15. Actually, let's take a look at verse 13. So the Philistines were subdued. So they had this big battle after this, right? And God is going to thunder in verse 10, thundered with a great thunder on the day upon the Philistines and discomfited them, and they were smitten before Israel. And the men of Israel went out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and smote them until they came to Bethkar. So the Philistines were subdued, verse 13, and they came no more into the coast of Israel, and the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. And so, that's something interesting. If you look at the pattern in Judges, there is a period of strife, there is a period of oppression, there's a period where the children of Israel cry out to God for deliverance. And God provides deliverance in the form of a Savior, in the form of a judge, whether it was Samson or Othniel, not Othniel, yeah, Othniel. Look at that, I knew, look at that. Incredible what I know. all the different judges, right? And so here's Samuel. Samuel now is playing the role of the judge. And so during the time of Samuel, the Philistines were subdued and weren't able to come into the coast. We're going to find that changes, though, brothers and sisters, right? Because the Philistines aren't just going to kind of rest on their laurels. There was a genuine hatred between these two people, right? The Hebrews looked at the Philistines as invaders. They're coming into our land. They come from this far-off land from the north parts of the Mediterranean Sea. They came in their ships, and now they're here with their iron weapons and their chariots. Israel didn't have chariots. Remember, they lived up in the hills. It would make no sense for them to have chariots. But the Philistines, who lived down on the plains, right? We talked about this. Hey, horsemen and chariots make perfect sense, doesn't it? And so they would kind of line up. We'll take a look at one of the battles because it talks about the different weapons that the Philistines had. And the Hebrews are like, we have farm implements. Maybe we can do something. So they had a lot. There was problems, right? There was problems. All right, verse 14. And the cities which the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel from Ekron even unto Gath, and the coast thereof did Israel deliver out of the hands of the Philistines, and there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. So it's a time of peace, right? It's that same cycle again. God provides a deliverer, delivers them out of the hand of the oppressor. In this case, it's the Philistines. And now there is peace. They take all of the cities back, which the Philistines had took from them, and also the Amorites, right? Another one of their enemies. Samuel made peace with them. Interesting. Verse 15, and Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. That's his main job. He's judging Israel. And he went from year to year in a circuit to Bethel and Gilgal and Mizpah and judged Israel in all those places. So I'm guessing that at certain times during the year, he would call all the people together, and this is when they would bring all of their problems and their issues to Samuel. I'm hoping Samuel had some help with this, right? So people that he would designate, as judges as well. I don't know. We're not really told what the actual specs of this was, which I would be very interested in, but we're not given that. So Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, and he's going to judge Israel in all of those places. And his return was to Ramah, for there was his house, and there he judged Israel, and there he built an altar unto the Lord. Interesting. So Ramah is going to be his headquarters. That's where he's going to live, right? Ramah is really going to play a very subtle, important role in the history of Israel. I think we talked about this as well, right? Lee's looking at me like, yeah, this is called a subtle recap. This is what you do all the time. Yeah, Ramah is going to be the place where Samuel is going to live. He also builds an altar here, right? So it's interesting because there would be an altar where the tabernacle was, right? Which was in Shiloh. But Samuel was going to build his own altar. And I wonder if that's because of the corruption that was going on during with Hophni and Phinehas. I'm not sure. We're not told why Samuel built an altar there. But he built an altar to God. And so there was an altar there. We're going to find out, too, that there are other places like the high places. The high places are still going to be there. They're going to still worship God in those places. So I guess my point is there wasn't really one centralized location where they would go to worship. There were a lot of different places. It was fractured at this time. And it's not going to be until David takes Jerusalem, right, and then brings the ark up into Jerusalem in the tabernacle and sets it up in Jerusalem, that there's going to be one center location of worship. But is that going to help the situation? No, because we know that throughout the Kings and the Chronicles, it says that the people worshipped God here and there and everywhere, the groves, the high. But how many times does it say in Kings and Chronicles, but the high places were not taken away, right? And so this was ingrained into the culture, into the religious practices of Israel at this time. And it was very similar to the religious and cultural practices of the Canaanites at this time as well. They had high places, they had groves. So you can see the slow influences. It really wasn't all that slow. Almost immediately, when Israel comes into the land, they start taking on a lot of the characteristics of the people that lived there. And God is continually warning me, you have to be unique. You have to have your own culture. You have to have your own religious beliefs, because if you don't stay unique, you're just going to be taken over very slowly by the other nations that are around you. right? How many times does God say that to his people? All right, any questions on that? So Samuel was a very busy guy, I guess is what I'm saying, right? He had a lot on his plate, and he was a very active worker to help Israel kind of get back on its feet. They were at a very low time, weren't they? You know, the Philistines are coming in and, you know, doing all kinds of damage. But eventually, Israel, under the direction of Samuel, is going to stabilize, both internally through his leadership and externally through war, which we just read about, but also through peace as well. He's going to make some kind of peace treaty with the Amorites. It's not going to last, but that's okay. All right. So let's take a look now at a very important transition. It's a transition time between the period of the judges, right, where you had the 12 tribes of Israel designated in their certain areas, right? They had a prince over, like each tribe, as we know from the law, would set up a prince over their tribe, a leader of their tribe. And so they kind of did what they want. I look at it this way, is like in United States history before the Constitution was written. Does anyone know what document the government was run under? Anyone remember? Jim?
The Articles of Confederation?
Absolutely. Very good. Articles of Confederation. Now, without getting all nerdy on you, the Articles of Confederation gave a tremendous amount of power to the states. In fact, there was almost no federal government, and that was a real problem because, you know, if Virginia didn't want to do something, then they weren't going to do anything, right? And vice versa with Massachusetts. So it was very hard to get things done this way. And so it wasn't until the Constitution comes around where there is a very strong centralized government that now you have the United States, right? It's not the Articles of Confederation anymore. And so I look at it in this way. You had different tribes with their own agenda. You had different tribes in certain areas of the land of promise, and they all had differences, right? In fact, you know, the inheritance could only stay in the tribe. So you had a very distinct group of people, even though they were all Israelites. They were very different from each other. They really were. And so this is going to cause a lot of friction. And so with that in mind, let's take a look at the 8th chapter of 1 Samuel. So it says, "And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel." Right? Okay, well, that sounds reasonable, right? His sons were probably there, saw how Samuel worked, understood kind of the politics of ancient Israel, how to deal with certain situations, right? Well, now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah, and they were judges in Beersheba. So they were down south. They were down in the southern part of Israel at the time. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre and took bribes and perverted judgment. Who does that sound like? Sons of Eli, right? Yeah, Hophni and Phinehas. Very good, yeah. So there's that connection. That's an interesting connection. So you have Eli, the high priest, his sons are just doing whatever they want to do. And here's Joel and Abiah really doing the same thing. They took bribes. That's not a good situation, right? Perverting judgment. How many times in Scripture does the prophets, that God through the prophets talk about that, about perverting judgment? Don't do it, right? Don't take bribes. I think the law actually says that very clearly about the judges, not to take bribes, not to favor the rich over the poor, but to judge everything equally. And so Samuel knew this, and it says that his sons didn't walk in his ways. And so that implies that Samuel never perverted judgment, right? He never took bribes. He wasn't trying to get rich. He wasn't trying to enrich himself off of his leadership position. He took it seriously. And he was guided by the principles of God. His sons looked at it as an opportunity to enrich themselves and to gain power through wealth and control and that type of thing, and perverted judgment. And so the people, like, here we go again. right? We had Eli. Eli delegates responsibility to his sons Hophni and Phinehas. Thing goes completely off the rails. They're awful people. Samuel comes along, sets up this wonderful kind of judging system in a circuit. He's a man of God. He loves God. He's judging the people the right way. He just won this wonderful victory over the Philistines who are at peace. Now he delegates all of this responsibility to his sons. It's going off the rails again. And the people are like, we can't keep on doing this. This is crazy. Right? So there's that aspect of it. Okay? And that's why this chapter starts with that background information, doesn't it? Because it wants to put this 8th chapter into a proper context. Okay? Israel at this time was very unique in that they didn't have a king in this area. Almost all of the Fertile Crescent civilizations had a king. Okay? In Babylon they had a king, right? In the Assyrians had a king. The Hittites had a king. Egypt had a pharaoh, right? A king god. They weren't just kings, right? You have to remember too that they were also endowed with, the power of God. They were in fact gods themselves, right? Conduit between God and the people. So in his Israel, he's kind of like this hodgepodge of different tribes, trying to hold everybody together and try to make these decisions while they're being pressured by other countries. It was a tough situation politically. And so what do the people do? Well, let's take a look at it. Then the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah. And so that's what we're talking about when each tribe had an elder or a prince, right? The leader of the tribe. So you had these elders of Israel coming to Samuel and talk about the problem, right? Now this would be a difficult conversation, right? You hear in business and obviously in education too. Rich, how do you handle difficult situations, right? This is always an interview question I would get, right? I don't know if you're familiar with this stuff, right? Difficult conversation. You know what I'm talking about. All right. And so they're very direct. They kind of just lay it on the line for Samuel, right? It says, behold, you're old. Oh, thank you. Good way to start off a conversation. And your sons walk not in your ways, right? Your sons are not walking in your ways. We are completely downgraded with these guys. They're perverting judgment, Samuel. We can't have it. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. Well, there it is, right? Make us a king to judge us like all the nations. We need a strong man. We need one guy, powerful guy that can bring us all together. Going to stop all this infighting, this internal nonsense that we're dealing with. A judge here, he comes up and then there's just kind of anarchy. Every man does what is right in his own eyes, and then a judge comes, right? And so they're looking at their history, the last 200 years of history in the land of Canaan, and that's been the cycle. So, we look at this in a negative way, like Israel is rejecting God. And obviously, they didn't see it that way. They didn't see that they were rejecting God at all. They're saying, look, we're at a time of crisis. We're not going to survive unless we come together as a group, as one united group. And we need one guy to do this. And he's got to be strong. He's got to be powerful. He's got to be able to keep everybody together. He's got to be a good judge, right? Makes sense. Look at all these other nations. They're prospering. Egypt's doing great. The Hittites up north, they have a king. The Philistines, actually, it's interesting. The Philistines didn't have a king. They had the lords, the 5 lords of their different, they almost had like little city-states, right? But everybody else had a king. This idea of one individual to control everything, centralizing the government was very important at this time. Okay, they're champion, right? This is the time in the late Bronze Age, the early Iron Age, where you had champions going out to battle against other champions, right? And they would fight, and then everyone else would fight after. And we're going to see that, aren't we, with David and Goliath, right? Goliath was the Philistines' champion, right? And the Israelites had nobody, and they're just and we'll look at that probably next week or the week after. Goliath is going to continue to go out and just mock the Israelites. Okay. Verse 6, but the thing displeased Samuel. Yeah, no kidding. He was just called old, and he's saying you're a bad parent, right? So it's it displeased Samuel. I think Samuel is going to take it personally, right? It's a rejection of Samuel. Like look at everything that we've done. Look at everything that I've done for this people. I've saved these people from destruction, and now they're rejecting me. And God, he got this. He understood, like Samuel, like where he was coming from, because he says, when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." What was Samuel's reaction to this bad news? What was it? What does that verse say? He prayed. Yeah, he prayed to. It says he prayed to the Lord, right? And so I think there's an important lesson in that, isn't there? He was faced with a very difficult situation. It displeased him. He wasn't happy about it. He's taking it personally. He feels as if it's a rejection of him and his leadership. He's very upset about it. But instead of kind of lashing out at these elders, right, and ranting and raving and reacting very impulsively and negatively to what the elders are telling him, says that it doesn't say Samuel said anything. I think he just listened, but it displeased him, and maybe he expressed that. He says, "Guys, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray to God about it," and that's what he does. And so it's not until after he prays to God and has this really nice, very nice conversation with God, that this is when he tells the elders of Israel, kind of the plan, right? I'll go along with it, but this is what's really going to happen in reality. I'm going to take a look at that. And so the Lord said unto Samuel. Now, I've said this a few times, but wouldn't it be great that if we had a problem of this magnitude in our own lives, and when we prayed to God, God would answer us directly, to hear the voice of God. No, God doesn't communicate that way with us, right? He communicates with us in a lot of different ways, and in my life anyway, certainly primarily through His Word, right? And we have this kind of wonderful book of direction that God has provided. But God can talk to us through other people as well. And I think that's why it's so important for us to have very loving, strong, meaningful relationships with each other, right? Because, God can direct us through a lot of different ways. In this way, it was a direct conversation with Samuel, which was great, right? And you know what? Samuel, this isn't the first time, obviously, that Samuel prays to God and had a direct conversation with Samuel. And God, they had this conversation. This was probably maybe the 1,000th time that Samuel probably is talking to God. From a very little boy, right? And so look, from a very little boy all the way up to when Samuel was old. Let's say he's 80 years old now. All that time, Samuel was praying to God, building a relationship with God, listening, speaking, loving God. And this is why he was so successful, right? And so, sometimes when we get, challenges don't go away in life, right? You think that, hey, James, sorry, something I said, I apologize.
No, it's not.
Okay. Sometimes we think that maybe life gets easier as we get older. I don't know. I had this idea when I was younger. So look at Judy's like, are you out of your mind over here? Every period in our lives has challenges. When you're young, you got some challenges. You don't really understand what it is. But, we go through ups and downs in our lives. And so, Samuel had struggles when he was younger. He had to deal with a lot of nonsense when he was younger. Imagine dealing with all the problems of the Israelites every time. Imagine the nonsense he had to deal with. And so now he's old, and he's got to kind of deal with this, right? You kind of feel bad. I feel bad for Samuel anyways, because he has a point. He's like, listen, look at all the stuff I've done for these guys. I've been a really good judge, right? You know, my 2 sons are doofuses, but that's not my, you know. All right. Verse 7. And the Lord said unto Samuel, hearken unto the voice of the people. Listen to the people in all that they have to say unto you. For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. So this is a pretty powerful statement, right? Hey, Samuel, don't listen to what they have to say. Listen. Give in to what? Listen, follow what they want. They want a king? Give them a king. They're not rejecting you. This isn't a rejection of you. It's actually a rejection of me. And, you know, that, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the lack of love and bond and relationship that the Israelites didn't have with God. Didn't have with God. You know, it wasn't a consistent following of Yahweh during the time of the judges. It was this, right? Remember? Following, not following, following, not following, right? Struggle, deliverance, that type of thing. All right? So let's go on. According to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me and served other gods, so do they also unto thee. Yeah, Samuel, they've been doing this to me since I brought them out of Egypt. You understand what, you know, you feel what I'm feeling? Right? Ever since they came out of Egypt, this is what I've been dealing with these guys. You know, they're following me, they love me for a little bit, and then they start serving other gods. They're not faithful. They're not faithful to you. They haven't been faithful to me. Welcome to the club, my man, right? And so that's a true statement, right? But do you see, I don't know if there's even, like, you don't get a sense that God is, like, angry. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you read these words, it's just like God, like, almost like matter-of-factly just saying, hey, this is the deal. This is the deal. You know, I'm not upset about it. It's like I'm sad about it. But you know, it isn't. There's no like real fire and brimstone in what God says here. And I shall smite thee. You know, we have some of that in Isaiah and Jeremiah, don't we? None here. Now this is great. Verse 9 is great. Now therefore hearken unto, listen to them. Howbeit yet protests solemnly unto them. This is very serious stuff, right? And show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. Lay it out for them. Tell them the truth, Samuel. Tell them the truth about what a king is going to do. You want a king? You got a king. And so this is, you know, after this prayer and after he speaks to God, here we go. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. Samuel just shares everything that God told him, right? Everything that God told Samuel right here, he's going to tell the people as well. Now I wonder what the reaction of the people, like, ever since you came out of Egypt, you've been doing this to me. You know, God is telling the people. Maybe it would give them a time to pause, like, maybe the problem that we're having is our lack of love and faithfulness to God. Maybe that's the issue. Not necessarily how we're put together politically. It's actually, we're not trusting in God. We're not loving God. We have no real relationship with him. We're serving this God and that God and doing whatever we want. I don't think they looked at it that way. And he said in verse 11, this will be the manner of the king that will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for themselves and for his chariots and to be his horsemen. And some shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground and to reap his harvest and to make his instruments of war and instruments of his chariots. He's going to conscript. There's going to be a draft. Samuel's saying, you know what? There's going to be a draft, guys. And all of your sons are going to be drafted into the king's army. And you know what? All those chariots and all those instruments of war, yeah, he's gonna start building them. And we're gonna have horsemen now too. Get to sound great, doesn't it, guys? Right? And so they're like, yeah, that sounds good. But guess what? We need men for those horses. We need men for those chariots. We need men to make those instruments of war, right? And so, Eisenhower in the 1950s talked about the military-industrial complex, right? Still around today. Military is massive, and it makes, trillions and trillions of dollars. It's the same thing. Samuel's saying, there's going to be a military-industrial complex. There's going to be, there's going to be constant battles and war. Yeah, this is what you want. You got it? Okay. It's not just your sons that are going to be taken, right? Your daughters are going to be taken. They're going to cook for the king. He's going to take your fields and your vineyards. He will take the tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give to his officers and to his servants. What is that saying? A tenth of your seed, verse 15. What is Samuel talking about there?
You will take the tenth of your grain.
Yes. They're gonna get taxed now. What's the only tax that the Israelites had to pay? To temple tax, right? Or to the to the tabernacle, right? Every year it was like a poll tax, and they had to pay a certain amount. And a tenth of their goods also went to the support of the Levites. That was it. Everything else was their own. Oh, guess what, guys? Now you're going to have to pay a tenth more. So now your taxes are going up from 10%. Oh, we're going to double your taxes, going up to 20%. Okay, so let's just recap what Samuel has just told the people. There's going to be a draft. Your women are going to be forced to cook and to clean for this guy. The whole structure of Israelite society is going to be changed. Taxation is going to double. That's some things to ponder. I didn't think about that. Oh, yeah, it's going to happen. He goes on. He's going to take your servants, your maidservants, and your goodliest, your best young men, and your donkeys, and put them to his work. You want a strong man to protect you, to go in and fight your battles? Great. Guess what? Costs money. Guess what these strong guys do? They try to get stronger. They try to get more powerful. And they're going to use that power. And they're going to use that strength to lord it over you. You're going to lose something. You may gain security for a short period of time, but you're going to lose your freedom. And this is what this chapter is about. It's a timeless political, I wouldn't say diatribe, but it's a timeless political statement. Truism. Thank you, Brother Jim. Yes. Yeah, it's a truism. It's a political truism of what happens when one person gets power. They want more power. Okay, and then verse 11, he's going to take a tenth of your sheep, and you're going to be his servants, it says. This is the last thing that Samuel says. And you shall cry out in that day because of your king, which you have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. Yeah, that's kind of a scary situation, isn't it? You're going to cry out. You're going to have you're going to have bad kings. Was Samuel right, by the way? Yeah, he was kind of on the mark, wasn't he? And there's actually, and we won't get to it today, but we can, maybe next class we'll look at some examples with this that actually took place. Saul taking people to be in his army. He actually did it with David, didn't he? After he saw him, beat Goliath, said that he took David and brought him in. He was part of his army. So it happened, right? And there's different things. Just like taking your vineyard. Jezebel and Naboth, right? Kind of pops into my head, right? Ahab wanted the vineyard, and Naboth says, hey, look, I can't sell you this vineyard. It's been in my family for hundreds and hundreds of years. And Ahab's like, oh, I want the vineyard. And so Jezebel sees him and says, like, what are you doing moping around? And then, has Naboth killed under false charges, right? So, anyways. Okay. So he says this. And when this happens, and you cry to God, he's not going to hear you. Because he's told you right now exactly what's going to happen. Okay? He hasn't kept anything back from you. He hasn't manipulated anything. He hasn't lied to you. He has told you the complete truth of what is going to happen in the future if you desire a king. Okay. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. No, but we will have a king over us. The political realities, or the reality of the time, I think was so, it was certainly stressful, but I think it put so much pressure on these elders, okay? They were under a tremendous amount of pressure, and they had to make this decision about the future of Israel. Are we going to continue on like this, with this present relationship that we have, or are we going to get a king? And the present situation overrode, I think, any long-range, logical thought process with this. God isn't in the mix in this, by the way, brothers and sisters. The people, they don't really bring up God. They bring up the situation. They bring up Samuel and his sons. Look at all the nations. They've got a king to bring us out. This is really why we're struggling. We don't have a king, right? We will have a king over us that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles, right? There's that idea of a savior, of a great leader, of one, powerful warrior, okay? And Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he rehearsed them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, hearken unto their voice, and make them a king. And Samuel sends everyone home. And that's how that chapter ends. Okay. If you want a king, you get a king. And so in our next class, what we're going to look at is that process, right? That transitional process from the time of the judges to now the beginning of the kings of Israel. And we're going to be introduced to this really wonderful character. I like Saul a lot. I think he's a very tragic figure. I think we can see a lot of lessons in Saul. Mistakes that he made, the unbelievable potential that he had. But man, oh man, did he, we can talk about this, but I think there was some mental illness that he was dealing with, right? I think the fact that Samuel told him that that the kingdom was going to be taken away and given to a neighbor made him loopy, like really made him paranoid about everybody. Like that was the worst thing that Samuel could say to Saul. I don't want to get into it now, but I'm going to get into it. The kingdom is going to be taken away and given to someone very close to you was essentially what Samuel was saying. And so ever since then, Saul was all around. Who's taking my kingdom, right? Is it my son? Is Jonathan taking my kingdom? Gotta kill him. Oh, David. Saul's instincts were right, by the way. It was David. Just there was nothing he could do about it. I mean, he tried to, believe me. He spent the majority of his time trying to kill him. But anyways, any questions, comments on this? Great little chapter. Great time, period of history that I think sometimes we can kind of overlook in our readings, but it's very important. This is really one of those transitional times in Scripture where it's kind of like a revolutionary thing, right? Going from the time of the judges to the kings. And it's going to fundamentally change the relationship of the children of Israel to their king, to the prophets, but also to God as well.